Hi, this is Andy. Most days you can find me working with a group of leaders, helping them learn how to improve their ability to lead and deliver through our workshops and keynotes. And if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you know that most episodes bring you perspectives from leading authors and thought leaders on topics related to project management and leadership. Well, every once in a while, I also include project management practitioners, people who aren't just writing books about it, but who are leading initiatives in the real world. Well, today I'm excited to share a discussion with a guy who is both. Bill Dow is an author of books and other learning products to help people grow in their ability to deliver, but he's also the Director of Enterprise PMO at University of Washington Medicine. Ever since Bill received the prestigious World PMO Influencer of the Year last year, I've been wanting to get him on the podcast to congratulate him and have him share his wisdom with you. So here in this episode, we're finally making it happen. In today's episode, you'll hear a bit about Bill's journey, which has the potential to inform and inspire your own career journey. He'll share some of his top project management related lessons and tell us how he has seen project management offices change over the years. Bill will share some clues about when PMOs are struggling, some that are not as obvious, which can help provide an early warning for any of us who are in project related roles. He'll also talk about AI and the future of project management offices, and so much more. It's a fun discussion with a guy who cares deeply about the world of people and projects. And I can't wait to share it with you. Hey, quick note, in addition to the project management workshops we deliver at organizations around the world, there are two sessions that have been increasingly asked for: executive presence and managing up. They're both topics that we often don't get taught in school, yet are so important to our success in the workplace. If you'd like to help your team members grow in their ability to confidently interact with their boss, clients, or other stakeholders without getting defensive, contact me. I'd love to explore how we can help. Check the show notes for more information. Thanks. Well, let's jump into our discussion with Bill Dow. Bill, thank you so much for joining us on the People and Projects podcast.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a couple of years since we had this conversation. I always love connecting with you.
Oh, man, same way. The time goes by too fast and it's too long in between, man. So we don't run into many people, Bill, who aspire to be a project manager from a young age. And yet so many people love it when they eventually get there. So I just love, could you help people understand the journey for you to get to a project-related role?
Yeah, 100%. So I actually started my career in 89. So a long time ago, right? And I started as a data entry clerk that went to a developer, that went to a business analyst, that went to a project manager. Yeah. And I've gone through project manager, PMO manager, portfolio manager, program manager, back to a PMO manager, back to project manager. And so just done that journey. But when I started, my first project was in 1991. I was 24 years old. That's pretty young, actually. And back in those days, it was mainframe to client server. So let's get off these mainframes. We don't need them anymore. Let's move to, in that case, was Oracle. But it was my first project. And it literally started, and I think it's a pretty good journey from business analyst to project manager.
That's cool.
So, but back in the mainframe days.
I feel like at that age, you're naive enough to say yes to take it on, because and so sometimes we overthink it. We don't take advantage of the opportunities, and you did, right?
Yeah.
And you would never even dreamt, I would guess at the time, of someday I'm going to lead a enterprise PMO.
No. Yeah. No idea, because they weren't even that big back then, right? And so you think about 1989, 1990, 1991, right? We didn't have the internet. I thought I'd be a project manager so I could just boss people around. I was like, they'll do all the work. I'll just boss people around. Little did I know how complicated this job is. But yeah, I initially went in as like, I'm just going to boss people. I don't have to do any work. But I was 24, so that was okay.
Absolutely. Well, people often think of project management as a title, let's say, or a career track. Yet I know many of the people that show up for our training courses don't even have the word project in their title. So what are some examples of how you feel like project management is misunderstood?
Yeah, see, I think there's a skill behind managing projects, right? I had a great conversation with my dentist the other day. And, a dentist is doing 10 to 12 patients a day. They have no time, but he wanted to open another chair. He wanted another chair in his office. And I said, okay, so you're going to run a project. How do you do that? I pay it. I hire a contractor, and I just pay them whatever it takes to get it done. I said, okay, so you're tracking risks, you're tracking schedule, you're tracking, nope. It just, I pay him to get it done because he doesn't have that skill set. He's a dentist. He's doing, 15 people or 12 or whatever people a day. Imagine if he had that skill set, right? Imagine if he could go, well, wait a second. You said it was going to cost this and now it's going longer. He doesn't. He just, I need a chair. I'll pay whatever it takes to get that extra chair because it's going to give me 10 people or 12 or whatever a day. So it is really interesting. They don't necessarily have the word project manager, but they need that skill. And, it's often, project management is often misunderstood of what they actually do, right? We hear overhead, we hear administrative, book a meeting for us, just bug people to get things done, go get us coffee, right? All those kind of things that you hear, because the real work is done in the team members. The real work's done in developers or, whatever the case may be. That's clearly not the case, right? When you think about needing that skill set, and then you come back to the art and science of project management, right? And that's often misunderstood as well. But when you have a project manager who's got a seat at the table, understands the business, can drive leadership conversations, can drive the team, there's nothing better in the world than that. But it does come down to a set of skill sets, not necessarily a title.
I like it. I find that sometimes people think, oh, project management, oh, that's construction, right? Or somebody just recently, oh, that's like IT.
Yeah.
I love your example because a dentist would benefit from these skills. I find that we'll often get administrative assistants who will show up for the class. They're certainly, without a doubt, right? They're project managers. And so there's so many ways that can apply. And I love how you say that, like there's things from this discipline that people can take, whether they even realize it or not, that can help them. So
and we miss that. And they also, which is interesting, is they don't think it's important because in that same conversation, in that same conversation, I said, did you take project management in school? He goes, yeah, I took a class, but I'm more focused on dentistry. But he took a class, and it's like, interesting. But imagine if they just focused on that core discipline, how more effectively they could run their businesses. Right? We often think project management for small businesses, and they don't think of it that way. They run projects, they run hundreds of projects, like the front desk office or the front desk clerk or the office manager are running hundreds of projects, but they don't have that project manager skill set.
So
or it's not called out.
Or and they burn through budget and just the frustration. So we could spend an entire day talking about lessons you've learned about leading people and delivering projects, but just off the top of your head, like what are some of the important lessons that you just find you go back to time and time again?
Yeah, I think I would like to tackle that in two different ways. And one is leading people. So when you think about leading people, just think of that from a functional manager perspective, a hire fire manager, right? And we often don't think about that. So one of the lessons is it's a growing and learning experience every day. You're going to make mistakes, right? You have to give yourself grace, but you're going to make mistakes. Unless you're completely trained in all aspects of HR at all times across every company, you're going to make mistakes. So you got to give yourself grace. On one hand, right? You also have to understand the complexities of managing people, giving yearly performance reviews. Some people get more than less. How do you make that call, right? Giving merit increases, dealing with hiring, dealing with firing, dealing with quitting, dealing with layoffs. Right? If you've ever had to hire someone or fire someone or lay off someone, that is a completely different skill set that a lot of people don't think about managing people. Granting stock, granting bonuses, right? That also, this Joe gets more than Sally. Sally gets more than Mary, right? There's a complexity there. So we often don't think about dealing with people sick, dealing with people's marriages, divorces, sick leave. We don't think about that from a leading people perspective. But sometimes that is the most difficult part of the job, and one that you have to give yourself grace, because it's just very, very difficult unless you do this for years and years and years. And even if you do, you still are going to make mistakes. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, but two thoughts. One is you're so right. And the other thought is some people go, yeah, but Bill, these people don't report to me, but some of that is still valid, even if they don't report to you. Right. In fact, maybe it's even more complex there, because you have to still find a way. How do I motivate them? How do I coach them, even if they don't directly report? Right. And so if we're like, it's all about the Gantt chart and the critical path, and we don't do what you just said, we're going to struggle with our projects.
And then and so number 2 is really from a lead, and that's where I go with leadership without authority. Right. Communication skills, just having to direct people and influence people when they don't directly report to you. How do you get Mary to stay and work a couple extra hours on a Friday before a long weekend? Right? It's those types of relationships that you can build with your team members when you're not the direct manager over them that makes you very successful. And that's why I keep going back to the art and science of project management, right? That art is that relationship, that communication, that influence without authority. And that's critical. And those are some of the tips that, I think people just need to be really, really cognizant of both of those skill sets.
It's so funny because I teach an MBA class on project management, and we don't even use a textbook, because most textbooks don't put enough focus on what you just said. It's more on the technical aspects of this. And so I think even if somebody does get technically trained on project management, they're often missing exactly what you talked about. So I'm so glad you stressed that, Bill.
And it's interesting because I have people that will come to me and they'll go, "Hey, I just got a PMO manager job." I said, "Oh, great, congratulations!" And I said, "Okay, how many have you ever managed people before?" "Nope, never." And I'm going, "Wow! First of all, how'd you get hired? A, and B is you are in for it." Because so much of running a large PMO is people management. And you're right. You can train people on Gantt charts and risk logs and issue logs and all that stuff, and that's great. But if you don't have the people side, and running lots of PMOs and being around this space in a long time, I've had superstar people, and I've had superstar technical, and it's the superstar that manages both that really brings them to the top level. Because, if a guy can't do a Gantt chart but can have relationships, that's great, but that's only half of the role.
Yeah. Well, I think in so many ways, Bill, that's a summary of why you've succeeded so well, is that you've really tried to work on both of those. And what I love is over the course of your history, you've gotten to see the evolution. Like you said, it wasn't even called a PMO maybe back in the day. It's changed so much. I'm curious, some examples of how they're different now from when you started, and then maybe some assumptions that you might think would be reasonable in the next 5 years.
Yeah. So my first PMO was in the early 2003 is when I first did. So 21 years ago, right? If you do the math, it's 21 years ago I ran my first PMO. And back then was all about process. It was all about templates. It was all about the rigor around project management. It still needs to be today. My current PMO is over 100 active projects. 100. Okay. So it still needs to be today. Also back then, there was really the focus on project management. What do project managers do? Right? We were only 1 or maybe 2 PMBOK in. So it was still very early in the PMBOK stage, right? It was Canada, it wasn't the US. So it was like, but we were still there, right? But so back then was really about project management. Like, just what is this discipline and how do we lead teams? So since then, we're starting to see more ROI. We're starting to see more value. A lot of that does rely on the business, though. Right? You can't, if you're in IT, you can't do all the ROI and the value without the business partners. And I think there's a maturity curve that still has to happen there, but we're starting to see more of that. We're developing more methodologies. Back then, we never had Agile. Agile was 2000, right? This was 3 years into the existence of Agile. So we clearly didn't have Agile. I brought in Agile in IT and Microsoft in 2005 to 2006-ish.
Super
No
early
Agile.
still, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still relatively new, right? What about hybrid? What about DevOps? We're starting to see more of those development methodologies come into our PMOs. We're also seeing more dashboards, tools, reporting, Power BI, Tableau. We're seeing more different types of software, like we're seeing Asana, Jira, Smartsheets, right? Back then, it was all project desktop, right? We're seeing more organizational change management. I often say if I could reverse my career 30 years, I would go down org change management path. I'd go down ProSci and the ADKAR path, right? And we're starting to see that being adopted. But that wasn't back there. That wasn't there 30 years ago. There wasn't no ProSci or Cotter or Connor, right? So we didn't have those aspects, but we're slowly starting to see those in today's PMOs. But now where are we going? So you said, hey, where are we going? Well, we also see greater alignment, and we need to get greater alignment with the strategic aspects of the business. Where's the business going? How does the PMO align to strategy? We need to get more of a seat at the table there, right? We need to get PMO leaders at that C level so they can have that conversation. Try to get there. We need to see more value realization. We're starting to see that, but we have to train the business. AI, right? AI. That's going to be amazing in the next 5 years, but we're not there yet. You think about Copilot. Copilot Pro is $30 a month. Individual seat, $30 a month. You take 700, what is that, 360 or something a year. You take 700, 800 employees, you get $300,000. Is it worth it for a V1 product? Maybe not, right? So now you're going to start seeing AI, but you're going to see AI in limited places because the cost is going to be such a factor, right? Everyone's releasing a $20 a month. That's great, right? Not for corporate's 30. And then where does that go? So there's a cost thing there, but AI is going to be a major part of it. We also need to keep improving our talent. We got to keep growing our talent. We have to grow our talent from an art and a science. We're going to start focusing and sending our project managers to more people-based, communication, leadership-based products. We can always teach the technical. The other thing that I'm seeing too is we're starting to bring more automation. So we're going down Power Automate, Power Apps. Automation, low code, that's going to be something that's going to tremendously change PMO offices. I have a process right now where we're looking across all of our 100 projects, all the risks, all the issues, all the actions, all the decisions. With Power Automate and Power Apps, we can start getting some of that delivered to us, right? So you're going to start seeing low code just blow up, because how many companies are Microsoft-based companies? 90, 95%, which means they're going to go down the Power Apps, Power Automate, and get that data delivered to you compared to going to look for it, which gives you predictive analytics, not lagging, right? So you want to be in front of your data for decision making. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing in the next 5 years, but I think we're just going to keep blowing with AI. I think that's just going to blow up tremendously.
Yeah. Well, I think those are all good assumptions that people ought to be thinking about, and they might think, oh, we're not quite as forward thinking as UW Medicine right now, but it is worth looking into all those things. I agree 100%. Yeah. We had a former Scotland Yard detective on the podcast earlier this year who said success leaves clues, and he just meant there's patterns to success. We can learn those patterns. We can build off them. It can help us replicate the success. I want to take the flip side just for fun. Failure leaves clues. And so can you think of some patterns or clues you've seen in the potential signs that a PMO is at risk, and maybe even without them knowing it, risk of eventual extinction?
Yeah, 100%. I think that I love this question because I get asked it a lot, and I get it asked from why did my PMO shut down? Why did my PMO? And first thing I say is, it should not be a surprise to you.
Mhm.
It should not be a surprise. There has been leading indicators and clues all along. And, I've ran 10 for a reason, right? Half of them have shut down. Have they been failures? Some have, some haven't, right? But leading indicators and patterns are the number one. It's chapter 2 of my book, lack of executive support. If you don't have executive supports backing you, you're not going to survive. It just does not matter. We've seen, I've ran a program PMO. When the program shut down, PMO shut down. Had to lay off the people, get rid of the people. Laid off from a company. That's a PMO shuts down when the PMO leader, gets laid off. Reorgs happen all the time. How often do reorgs happen? PMOs shut down from that perspective again. And then, so these are some of the factors, right? If you look at your data, like again, being in front of your data, those can be leading indicators as well. If you've got a PMO and your projects continue to fail and continue to not deliver, you're going to say, you know what? They're going to reset. We need to reset and regroup and figure this out. And that could be just you, the leader, leaving, or it could be just blow it up. Let's go back to a decentralized model. Put project managers all over the different org groups, let them deal with the projects. And then, obviously something happens again, they pull it back together. But those are some of the leading indicators that in my 10 PMOs I've actually faced and dealt with.
Yeah, those are really good examples. I feel like you hear all kinds of numbers thrown around of how long the average PMO lasts. And I always feel like they're kind of provocative terms. And I think the answer is it depends. Right? But what's your take on that?
It's 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, okay.
3 to 5 years. In most cases, 3 to 5 years. And that's often because it's tied to the executive that lasts 3 to 5 years in that role.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right. And so when you get an executive who says, I need a PMO, they build a PMO, they stay 3 to 5 years, they move on because executives keep moving on, keep moving up. And the PMO is like, I got no support. Mm-hmm. Let's decentralize it. You're a cost, you're overhead, you're costing too much. Decentralize it. Then you've got project management all over the place. Something major happens or a new executive comes in. Guess what we need to do? We need to build a PMO. Yeah. And so it's been a fascinating journey because not a lot of people have ran 10 PMOs, right? And so going through this, it's just part of the process. It's like, okay, it's just, when is the next one? When's the next one? It's just part of the journey. And it's a very stressful part of the journey because projects come and go, but PMOs are that people side, right? And it's you're laying people off, you're getting rid of people. You've had people crying in my office and, just all sorts of things that you have to deal with. You don't deal with at the project level. It's just a completely different, skill set.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You talked a little bit about AI. Before we talk about how you think it's going to affect projects, how are you personally using AI, Bill? Like you personally?
Yeah, personally, I use it. Yeah, I certainly use it. I bounce things off it. It's just, I just don't find it, like, personally, there's, it's not there yet. Like the answers are in a lot of cases are not as good as just Google. Like, yeah, you can get the same thing. You can ask Claude or whatever, one of those tools, and then you can Google it and you can kind of get the same answer. So personally, not there yet.
Yeah.
Professionally, I use Copilot Pro, but again, I'm struggling with it. And so what I mean is Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, OneDrive, right? That $30 version. We're trying it. I've built decks. They're not that good.
Actually,
but
they're pretty bad. Right?
Yeah, but I also want to be fair. It's a V1 product. And I would say things like, build me a deck on how to build a PMO. I know how to build a PMO, right? I would test it. Like, there are more test cases because I don't see the use just yet. Yeah. I'm trying, but I wouldn't go to my favorite PMI conference with a Copilot deck yet. It's not there.
Yeah.
So,
That's for sure.
but it's V1, right? That's the thing, is we're not there yet, but we're getting there fast.
This is the worst they'll ever be, right?
This is the worst it'll ever be, because it will keep growing and getting better. And look at the money and the commitments, and Microsoft just releasing all of their new computers will be AI based, and those are huge.
But even that, that new recall feature they're talking about, it's a little bit creepy that it's taking screenshots of your work day by day, second by second by second. So
Yeah.
it's the rough equivalent of is our organization willing to put information into a cloud, right? And so so organizations, in addition to the cost, in addition to the quality that it gets, what about the security, right? So there's a lot to wrestle with at the organizational level, for sure.
Yeah, and is your data secure? And there's the medical, like in Workcase, we've got the medical side, the HIPAA, all those kind of concerns. All those concerns, right? Like you just have to be overly protective from a privacy and security basis. And we're not there yet. We, as in an industry in a world, are not there yet. We're not tagging our directories in certain ways. And we're not, we haven't even thought about some of those things. Some of the security requirements, you can go into PowerPoint and say, only share with, and no one else can see it. Like, we're like, really? That's in PowerPoint? So there's those types of things that we got to get ready as a world for this rollout.
Yeah, right. For me, that's the motivator to learn, is to experiment, is not because it's there, but to be able to see what it does. And even, I feel like more importantly, what it can't do very well right now. That's,
yeah. I see those prompts, and I'm not there yet. Like, I'm not there at hey, ChatGPT, build me a prompt for a schedule. Mm-hmm. It's like, great, I got a text-based schedule. It doesn't, I'm not there yet. But I'm also bringing 30 years. If I was 1 year or 2 year in, and I'd say, hey, ChatGPT, build me a schedule for how, an interface project or something, it would probably give me directionally right. Mm-hmm. But when you take 2 years and you take 30 years, you're like, no, I'm not there yet, or it's not there yet. But I don't know. That's why it's so exciting, because where it's going, it's the worst it'll be, right?
Yeah. It feels like I'm seeing a lot of people that go through the class will say, I now see how it can be my first draft. Right now, see how this would be like if I had an intern or I had an assistant. But kind of to one of the points you're making is, as it gets more integrated into the apps and across apps, then you can be like, all right, what work I have to do. You know what my schedule looks like. It might be able to make more intelligent things. But when people are saying it's doing that now, that is very rare situations where it's even close to that level.
Yeah, it feels a little snake oil, to be honest, right? Absolutely. It really does, because I think they directionally want it to get there, and it will get there. I'm as excited about AI as everyone. But the other thing that you're going to have to think about is your current workflow. Like, what do you do on a daily basis? Because that's what I'm saying is I have it in Word, I have it in Excel, I have it in all those various, and I'm going, I don't use it. Like, how do I use it? I want to use it. But you gotta, if you have to figure out a way to use it, that's not productive. Not at $30 a month times, X amount to, so that's where you'd have to go, okay, we got to step back and go, how can we use it? And then you need the data to be better than what it is today.
Just some use cases I've used it for recently was at flip charts. We had a meeting, and nothing so proprietary that I don't feel like I'm at risk. Take a picture of it and say, transcribe that. That saves me a lot of time. So the vision stuff is getting better. So there are use cases out there that can help us, but it's just one of those things of the robots are not ready to take over the world.
Yeah. And we're all learning those use cases. So Teams translations is supposed to be, or transcript or whatever it's called, is amazing. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. That's great. Or email, summarize this 45 thread email. Perfect. But we're figuring those out. Right. And there's a lot of people going, it's going to save the world. It's going to get rid of project managers. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. It's like, come on, we're not there yet. I get you're trying to be a futurist and try to be controversial, but realistically, we're not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday, Bill, who I think it was PMP of the year in his country of Ireland. And
cool.
I just got lucky. But when I think of your success, you didn't just get lucky being the World PMO Influencer of the Year. That doesn't just happen. So I think it's important for people to realize that's not like overnight success, that there's things that you've done and things that happen to you that have led to that sort of success. So, would you be up for sharing some of those?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, that was winning that influencer was a huge honor. I was among amazing other people. It was a huge honor. It was a huge surprise. I appreciate that. One of my friends and mentor basically said one of the key aspects of what I'm about is tenacity. Right? I just keep trying and trying. If it doesn't work, I'll try again and try again. And I think that's led to my, being a little bit more successful. But I try to be humble as well. And
Oh, yeah.
but it's I will just go after something, and if it doesn't work, I'll try it again. If it doesn't work, I'll try it again. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's been part of that. One of the things where when I first got a project manager job, I bugged my manager at the time, and I said, please, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? And I just wouldn't stop bugging her, right? Tenacity. I wouldn't stop bugging her. She goes, fine, go do it. I'll watch it, but you go do it. And that was in 91. So when I bugged and bugged and bugged even back then, and she gave me that shot, that's kind of why we're sitting here today, right? Because I became a project manager, and then and then I went through all those various roles, but it's just tenacity. It just keep working and working. If it doesn't work, try again. Doesn't work, try again. And just come at it from different angles. And I just keep doing it and keep doing it. So I think that's been kind of the root of how I've been successful, because I just keep going after it.
Yeah. And I think of you as somebody who's very relationship driven. And those awards are not beauty contests. It's not just because who has the most followers. Like, you have to deliver value, but when you build relationships, it builds trust. It builds, hey, I'm going to listen to this guy. You have a very, like you even caught yourself, like, I don't want to come off as arrogant about this. You are not, that is not who you are. You are a very humble person. I think people see you as a very generous person. Like when you learn things, you share it generously. I think sometimes we feel like we have to hold everything so close to our chest, and that is not you. And that has led, I think, to a lot of success for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I do. I try, I'm Canadian, so there's a little bit of humbleness in Canadians in general. And I do try to be humble. I do try to share. I love this stuff. I'm passionate about this. Even my direct employees, I go, I'd love to get in there and help you and coach you and mentor you. I'd love that. I just absolutely love doing that. So I try to share as much as possible.
Yeah. And it shows. And I think part of the tenacity is maybe your hunger to learn, and that's kind of built into that. So what do you do to stay up to speed? Because you before we started recording, I think you're like, man, we are so busy right now. So people use busyness as an excuse not to continue to learn. So how do you find in your schedule opportunity to do that?
Yeah. So I think, it's, I'm always learning. I'm always reading books. I'm always trying to, when I have a coach, I have a mentor, like I have people that I can go to that I can learn from them as well. Right. Bruce Taylor is the guy I wrote my first book with in 2005 or 2008 or something. And he has been a mentor and a coach. And so I constantly go back to him. Right. I'm learning sales right now. I'm learning brand new sales techniques, right? I'm reading books. I'm constantly looking and trying, how do I grow? I'm learning Power Automate. I'm learning Power Apps. So I'm keeping up on the technical side. I'm trying to keep up on the personal side. So I think it's really important. I used to teach a project management class, and they say, I don't have time. And I'd say, do this template. And they go, I don't have time. And I said, if it's important, you'll make the time, right? It could be Saturday afternoon and you're building a calm plan for your project. You'll make the time. So I just make the time. And I'm constantly working around the clock, but I make the time to try to better myself, reading books and that type of thing.
I feel I'm getting to the age where some friends are retiring. I'm getting to the age where some people are asking, are you going to retire? And part of me loves that aspect of what you just said. It's not even the hours as much as, to me, it doesn't feel like it's hours. It's just like this hunger and this thirst to keep learning. Right.
Yeah.
And it really helps you thrive. And I just feel like one of the things you do so well is you learn it and then you teach it, or you learn it and make it accessible to people.
Yeah.
And that helps you learn it even more, right?
Yeah.
When you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'll be putting out, new books and new ebooks and free ebooks and all that stuff. I'll be putting that stuff out as I learn it, because I just love sharing it.
Right.
And I just think everyone should be learning. Everyone should be growing and trying to learn. And I try to do every aspect of that. And this whole sales thing has been fascinating, right? It's like, I don't know how to sell.
Well, let's do some selling right now before we wrap up. I'd love for people to know, like, what resources do you have that could help them, and where can they learn more about you and what's available?
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't try to oversell, but I just put a Bill Dow PMPtraining.com. So Bill Dow PMPtraining, all one word.com, and it just gets you to all my free ebooks and all those, and my YouTube videos and that type of thing. So, but I really appreciate it. I appreciate being able to talk through this kind of stuff, because I just love it. Just so passionate about it.
The geek in me loves it, and I just admire you so much, Bill. And for those listening, if you'd love to learn more about Bill and the resources he just mentioned, check out the show notes for the cast. You'll see the links there. So, Bill, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.